Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come in, come in, come in. So, you guys, this is Tamika's Den. I am Tamika, and this is a review for Bel-Air, y'all. All right, the season finale. I wasn't ready for it to go. No. Okay, the name of this episode is Weird Too. And of course, this is season 1, episode 10, and I am already ready for season 2. All right. We got the answers we want to get, all right, about Will's dad, Lou, and everything that went down, baby. It was some chaos going on up in here. But let's go ahead and get into it. And so we start out, this episode where Viv is basically doing her, art show. She's, with the fellowship now. And you got Uncle Phil, looking across the room, smiling at her, admiring her. You got him looking at Will and seeing Will looking at a photo of himself. And, he's basically like, yo, you see this? I can't believe it. And he's like, what do you think it means? And he was like, well, it's showing some of your best, qualities, Uncle Phil tells him. He was like, your courage, your resilience, your ability to adapt and shine. And he was like, you see all of this from a painting? He was like, I do. And I also, more importantly, see it in you. All right. And so that was cute. And he was like, well, I mean, it's all thanks to you. And of course, Will is just thanking him again for everything that he's done. He was like, growing up without a dad has been really hard. And he appreciates, him for stepping in. You stepped up and you gave me a second chance. And of course, he can never forget that, and he's very appreciative of it. He basically tells Phil he saved his life, and he was like, I never talked to you about everything that happened, and he wanted again to say that he's sorry, of course. And Phil tells him, he has no regrets, all right? And so I'm like, okay, that was cute, all right? Little family time, and he says it was meant, to be the way that it all turned out. And so, we have Miss Hillary walking and talking to her friend Ivy that she has saw at the church, all right, Miss Carucci. And she's saying, oh, girl, I knew you had money, but I ain't know, you was running in the crowd like this. And something about Ivy is just not sitting right with me just yet, all right? I did not like the face that she made at Hillary when Hillary was saying to her that, maybe we could collab sometime. I don't know if I was reading it wrong, but I guess time will tell. We see a friend of Aunt Vaz come over and tells her, she's so happy for her that she was destined to do this and she's doing something great, but Aunt Vaz saying that she feels guilty. She was like, usually the fellowship goes to somebody younger that's just emerging, an emerging artist and someone that's not living in a mansion. And so she wants to be able to do things where she could go ahead and, have a platform that she could discover new talent or whatever. And so the friend is asking her, is that fine man with the light eyes gonna be there? And she was like, oh, you mean Reed? And she's like, mm-hmm. She's like, well, he stopped by earlier, but he didn't stay long. Okay, of course, I think he thought it was best for me to go ahead and focus on me and Phil tonight, especially after everything that happened with all the drama in San Diego, okay? And then there's another artist that come over to her that wants to say congratulations and that he's very proud of her, and she introduces him to her friend, and he was saying it's such an honor, nice to meet her, and that he's so proud of it. And she was like, well, we can get a cheers to that, okay, amen. And so they all, have a cheers. And might I say, Viv was looking good, okay, honey? I loved it, all right? The hair, the outfit, everything was on point. And so, you have Ivy and Hillary going over to the bar, and she was like, what they do is art, and they gotta embrace it. And she was like, especially if you want to break free from that whole white boy Cairo entanglement. She was like, girl, ain't no entanglement there, okay? Hillary lets her know I was trapped, but she trying to get up out of that, and she was like, don't say it too much because my family don't know nothing about it. And here come on Viv, like, what don't I know about? And she's like, Mom, my love life. All right. And so then we have Jazz coming over. I'm like, okay, Jazz. And, on Vlad goes off and he come and he's standing there. And he basically, is saying, I know y'all enjoying this little, sorority thing y'all got going on. And she was like, sorority? She was like, oh, you trying to get fancy. And so he was like, don't underestimate a brother from Compton, okay? And so she's like, oh, I'm sorry. Let me introduce you. This is Will's friend Jazz. And so, they like Jazz, Ivy, Jazz. And he was like, well, you're not going to poison me, are you? And Ivy talking about something I don't know. And so here go Hillary looking like, okay, no, girl, back off. He's mine. All right. And so, you have Carlton then looking at this painting of Will, and Ashley comes over and was like, are you jealous? And he's like, no. He was like, but what do you think the king means? And, rather the crown means on his head. And so she was like, oh, it probably means that you need to be watching out for your throne, because somebody is, coming in at it. And I'm like, now, Ashley, why would you say that to Carlton? All right. In the meantime, Phil is observing all of them. And you got Reverend Lamont coming over, his other alpha brother, Henry. And he's saying, oh, I thought I felt some, alpha energy in the air. And they basically were saying to him, now that you're not going for DA, what do you think is going to be the next thing, that you're going to have going on? And Henry also says, that they love going to our events. Of course, they would come, and that his wife, is saying that now he's getting cultured. But Phil lets them know he's not too sure what he's going to be doing right now. What he's trying to focus on is being there for his family. And he's like, good night, gentlemen. So I'm wondering if Phil is going to become a judge like the original Uncle Phil did. And what he going to have in store in the future, I guess we shall see. You got Will coming over again, trying to apologize to Lisa. At first he's like, oh, what are you going to order? Some Philly cheesecake? Of course, trying to make a light joke. And Lisa is still in her bag, and she getting on my damn nerves, to be honest, okay? He's asking her, can they restart? And she's saying, well, there's nothing to restart. You lied to me already, and I can't believe it. And again, she bringing up, we slept together. And he's like, Lisa, I didn't have no other choice. I did what my uncle needed me to do. He could have gotten a lot of trouble, and he still can. He was like, what was I supposed to do? And she tells him he just don't get it. Neither do I, Lisa. Girl, bye. Anyway. You got Jazzy coming over, and, Will's like, listen, I've been trying to apologize to her. And Jazz is like, well, maybe don't just say I'm sorry. Tell her how you feel. And he was like, maybe you going to get curved. That's all right. I get curved all the time. Just put it out there and let her know what you feeling. And at least you got it out there and she knows. And he was like, oh, scallops. I never had scallops before. Okay, so Jazz was dropping some knowledge throughout this episode, though. And so at this point, Will goes back over to Lisa again. Of course, she's like, boy, why you going to keep bothering me? What is it? Why won't you leave me alone? And he basically says, because I love you. And then she's like, oh, don't lie to me. Don't just say that because you feel like you got to say that to get me back and all of that kind of stuff. And he was like, no, seriously, I've never felt, about anybody the way that I feel about you. And he was like, I'm not lying, I promise, And so he was like, please, I just want to be able to talk to you. And even if you're going to be mad at me and you're not going to forgive me, I just wanted to let you know that. And so she says, that they can't do this here today. All right. But she will, they can talk tomorrow. All right. And so he's like, okay. Then we get Jazz and Hillary up in the bed. I'm like, okay, I see you, Hillary and Jazz. And she telling him, don't get too comfortable and get too used to this, because once my mother and father see the damn bill for this hospital, rather for this hotel room that I've been in, I might not be able to be here too much longer. And I'm like, Hillary, for real, you running up the daggone bill, staying in this hotel, you still haven't told your parents what's going on. Like, okay, girl. So, Jazz says that, he's trying to keep whatever they got going, whatever this is, he wanted to last as long as it can. I was like, okay, Jazz, I ain't mad at you. And Hillary is saying that her plan works. She got these two prominent, artists to follow her mom. And he was like, well, that's one thing that you are good at, strategizing. He told her she needs to be doing that on the regular, and she needs to be putting more energy into that. He was like, look at how, you got me with 5,000 followers. And we know that Jazz was never into social media. He didn't have no, social media at all before. And she says to him, well, I know you happy about your little 5,000 or whatever the case may be, but that's really not a big number. She was like, that's so cute that you find, 5,000 to be, a big thing. And I'm like, girl, it is when somebody ain't got it, all right? I wouldn't mind getting to 5,000 followers myself, all right? And so, nonetheless, you have Will calling Hillary's phone and she talking about, oh, sorry, Will, and hanging it up. But right after that, he calls Jazz's phone too. And he was like, well, damn, he's calling me now. And so he answers, and Will is basically like, can you put Hillary on the phone? And Jazz is like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm not with no Hillary. And Will was like, listen, I seen y'all together last night. Y'all not fooling no damn body. All right, seriously, put her on the phone. And that cracked me the hell up. I was like, okay, Will was on to it. He know what's going down with her and Jazz. And so Jazz was like, look, he knows already, and basically passes her the phone. And she was like, oh, don't say nothing to my parents. And he's like, look, I'm not calling about that. Y'all do whatever the heck y'all want to do, all right? He was like, I'm calling because I need help with Lisa. I'm trying to figure out a way to get her back, and I need your insight. And of course, Hillary is always down, to help Will and look out for him. I like the relationship, that they have. And so you have Phil checking in on Carlton. Carlton says, he was about to go ahead and go work out and then go look, for some kicks. And Phil brings up this idea saying, well, he had, some plans that he think would be better, where he actually was trying to take Carlton to this track. And Carlton was like, oh, we're going to go and watch. Oh, that would be cool. And he was like, no, actually, it's something even better than that. He's saying that he got, them both time on the track. And so Carlton is like, wow, okay. He actually gets excited about that. I guess Phil is trying to, really put in the time with him or whatever, since he's home now and not out on this campaign no more, whatever. And so Carlton asked, would Will be coming with them too? And he was like, no, I thought that this would just be me and you unless you want him to come. And so Carlton is basically like, well, this is not really, Will's type of thing anyway, or whatever. And you could tell that he was happy and felt good that this would be time that just would be for them two alone, And so you have Carlton coming down to the kitchen, and Will was like, yo, cuz I could go ahead and make you some eggs too. And he was like, no, I gotta be eating, healthy. No, thank you. But when he looks in the fridge, he like, well, damn, I could eat healthy if we had some food up in here. What's going on with the food? And they say that, they haven't really been keeping up with the food since Jeffrey's been gone. And he was like, well, at least that won't be happening for too much longer. Jeffrey will be back. And Ashley was like, I doubt that. And he was like, what the heck you mean you doubt that? He was like, Dad said he was on vacation. And then Will says, well, that's weird because Uncle Phil told me he had a family emergency. And so they like, Ashley's like, see, I checked his room and all his stuff is gone. And then, Carlton is like, nah. And so Will is like, I'm not sure about that. And then Carlton's like, what is it? Do you know something? He was like, remember, I had the opportunity to find out info about my dad. And I said I didn't want to. And Carlton is like, yeah. He was like, Jeffrey is the one that found out about it. And Phil wasn't too happy. And so, Ashley's like, oh, well, do you think Dad fired him? And then Carlton is like, no. There's no way that Jeffrey left without saying bye to us. So, of course, this is sending all of them red flags. And they like, we got to go ahead and find out what the heck is going on. You have Aunt Viv going to find Reed behind. And he's saying, so what do I owe this pleasure? And she was like, well, for obvious reasons, we haven't really been able to be around each other. We haven't spoken since San Diego. But she was like, basically she feels that he's a big part of why she got awarded this fellowship in the first place. She appreciates it. And she wants to do more work with him, okay? And, he was saying, he appreciates that helping artists is truly a gift to him and all of this other kind of stuff. And so she was telling him, like I said, that she wants to work with him, that, she wants to help bring other artists of color and give them the same opportunity that she had. and that she think he does amazing work. He has great expertise and, an amazing network, and, that's what she wants to put her energy into. And so he says that he's very honored, but he was like, how does your husband feel about that? And she basically claims that Phil and her have moved past any initial objections. And she's just like, so what do you say? And we don't hear what his answer was. But I'm like, are you sure, Arviv? Are you sure, girl? Tread lightly. Then you have, Will calling Lisa again, leaving her a message saying that he would like to continue the conversation. She ends up sending him a text message that says he can meet her at the cafe at 3. In the meantime, he's going to basketball practice, and as we see his car pulling out, we see, another car pulling in. And so we hear the doorbell ring, and Uncle Phil is telling, Carlton to come on, that they're going to be late for this track thing they're supposed to be going to. And he opened in the door, and he's like, Lou, baby, we got Will father popping up, and who is his father other than Marlon Wayans? I wasn't expecting that one, okay? And so he talking about I heard Will been looking for me or whatever. And he says that this British guy came and told him that Will needed him, and he got on the first plane smoking. So I was like, really, Jeffrey, you went and hunted? You went and hunted Will father down and told him to come after everything that happened? Like, okay, Jeffrey. And so Phil says, you could have did that 3 years ago when you was getting out of prison, if you really was so interested, And he says, no ex-con wants his son to see them, of course, while they in prison, and that when he first got out, it was still hard, and he didn't want to come, and so he got himself together, and that when he was staying in the halfway house, it was actually worse than the prison, all right? And so Phil says he has no doubt that his life has been hard, but he was like, you put yourself in that position with your selfish pride ahead of your son, okay? And he basically says, I'm not surprised that you feel that way. So I was like, okay, let's see where this gonna go, right? And so, like I said, Jeffrey spilled all the tea to him. He was like, I was so surprised when, the British guy contacted me. And he was saying that, he's not the same and he wouldn't be there if he was. So I was like, we shall see, because we remember how the original one went. And, the way they kept making such a big deal out of this, it was like, well, what did they do? And what did he do? And, what's going on here? And so, basically he says, that he really wants to see Will. And, Phil was telling him, oh, that's the, Lou I could remember from in the past or whatever the case may be. And he was telling him, like, I'm still scraping by, I'm still struggling, but that's not what I came here for. I asked my pastor for money to get a plane ticket for me to be able to come here, and I just want to see my son. And he was like, and when your man Jeremy showed up, and Phil is like, Jeffrey, he was like, whatever the hell his damn name was, and he told me my son wanted to see me, he also told me that you're against it. And so Phil was like, and you're surprised? And he just was like, like, no, not really. But like I said, he tells him that he is not the same man. And so Phil was like, well, at this point, Will is in my house, he's my responsibility, so I would like to go ahead and talk to Viv about this. And he was like, and what am I supposed to do in the meantime? He was like, well, you waited 3 years, so I think you could wait a little bit longer. It would not kill you, all right? And so, of course, then he goes and talks to Aunt Viv, and she's basically like, well, why did he come now? What changed? She was like, well, people do change, you know what I mean? And she was also saying that, we found out that he always maintained his innocence, all right? And we also found out that Phil was his lawyer. And so Phil is saying, yeah, well, I was his lawyer, okay? And he was not innocent, Phil just looks at it like it's all a game. And so Aunt Viv was saying, well, he didn't ask for anything, did he? He was like, no, he just said that he wanted to reach out to Will. But of course, Phil still feels that if he really was worried about reaching out to Will, he could have did it in the last 3 years. All of a sudden, he gets to the mansion, and that's when he all of a sudden becomes interested, right? And so they say, is it even, well, really, Vi was saying, Viv rather was saying, is it really even up to them, to make that decision or whatever the case may be. In the meantime, you got Carlton going looking through his father's office. He basically finds the envelope, and you see him sitting there for a minute debating on whether he should open it or not, and then he does open it and read it. Okay, we at the time don't get to see what he's seeing. He then goes up to Will's room, and he was saying, "Oh, I thought you was at the track zipping around 200 miles an hour." And Carlton tells him, "Yeah, it got postponed." He was like, "I really need to tell you something. I think you better sit down so I can tell you what it is." He was like, "I'm not even sure if I should tell you." So Will is like, "Bro, just lay it on me, all right? What's going on?" And he lets him know, your dad was here today. While you were away, Lou came, and he was like, my dad don't even know that I know that he came, and he basically lied to me and made up an excuse as to why we had to postpone going to the track today. Will is like, what are you talking about? He was like, wait, my father was here today? And so Carlton is like, yeah. And he was like, after that he left. And so of course Will is asking what did he want, and he was like, I don't know. At this point, like I said, his dad didn't even know that he knew. And so he basically was asking Carlton, like, how did you know it was my pops? And then he go ahead and take, the folder out, and Will is telling him, like, hold up. Excuse me. He was like, I told Uncle Phil I didn't want to read that. And, Carlton tells him, maybe you might want to read this, okay? All the answers that you want to know are in here. All right. And he basically, passes it to him or whatever the case may be. And I really like the growth that we are seeing in Carlton and how he's coming to Will, and he's like, trying to keep it real with him and everything. All right. I'm loving it. And so we see Will go ahead and take it, right? And he's reading it. And so in the meantime, while Aunt Viv and Phil are still trying to have this discussion and figure out what steps they're going to take and whether or not, they're going to go ahead and let Will see Lou or not. You have Will actually come in and ends up confronting them after he done read through this folder. And he's basically upset, and he's walking in like, oh yeah, I shouldn't be surprised that you two are sitting in here talking about me right now, okay? And so, Vi and Phil is telling them, this is complicated and stuff like that. He was like, to be blunt, your father was saying and doing a lot of things. He wasn't trustworthy, and then he was a con man. Of course, we heard that before. He was convicted of robbing an old man that, owed him money. And then Will is like, and you was his lawyer, right? And he was like, yeah, I read the report. So even Aunt Vi didn't know about this report. He's like, yeah, I asked Jeffrey to look into my father. Uncle Phil wasn't happy about it. And so then she's like, that's why Jeffrey left. And then Phil talking about it was mutual. She like, not on my part. So he getting a little attitude, from Aunt Viv with this part too, because she didn't know nothing about this, right? And so basically, she says we could pick this up later. She was like, what else did you learn about this, learn from this report? And so he was like, when my dad was younger, his daddy was a gangster who got killed while he was in jail. His mom died when he was 15. He dropped out of school at 19. He got arrested for stealing the car. He already had a prior. So, of course, when this happened, he didn't get no second chance like I did. And so Phil was like, well, when you breaking it down like that, that's a sympathetic view. And he was like, what? He don't deserve sympathy? And, of course, Will is questioning everything. He's like, is this what you're saying? And so he was like, reading that report, I basically can see, I realized that I've been wrong about him most of my life, or all of my life, right? And so, he basically was like, y'all made it seem like he had a choice when the truth is he got arrested and my mom just cut him off. So, of course, now he's looking at it in a completely different way, and Phil tells him again, it's more complicated than that, Will. And, we didn't want him to be able to manipulate you and disrupt your life and things of that nature. That's why we were determined for keeping him from reaching out to you at that time. All right. And so, that's why we didn't want you to be tracking him down or anything like that. And so, He could have reached out to you though in these years, but he didn't. And so, of course, like I said, Will is hurt anyway. You saying you didn't want him to get hurt, but he's still hurt. Right now, he feels like he's been lied to by them. He's been lied to about his mom. But, Phil is telling him he showed up today. And, it's your decision whether you want to see him or not. And so, she was like, what do you want to do? And so, basically, Will, says that he wants to see him, right? And so then he calls his mom. Of course he's telling her too that his dad is here, and he's asking her why she didn't tell him that she was in prison. Of course she's saying she's so sorry, she didn't want him to find out this way, that she thought that it was the right thing to do at the time, and she just was trying to protect him. Basically the same things that Aunt Viv and them was saying. Of course she feels bad because now she's all the way, back home, and they on the phone, whereas she was just there for his birthday, and she could have had the opportunity to lay everything out then, and just letting him know that, he was in prison, and they didn't think it was a good idea, that they all was trying to do this because they thought it was best for him. And of course, Will is fed up and tired of everybody telling him what was best for him. She's like, you were 4 years old. And he was like, well, I'm not no damn, 4 years old now. It is a big difference. And so basically, when he goes back in, he just tell them that he's going to go ahead and talk to them. You have Hillary at Ivy's photo shoot, and Hillary is giving her some advice and says, that she could be the person on her team because she's breaking it down. Ivy is like, be real with me. Don't just be a yes man. If I wanted a yes man, then I could go ahead and ask the other people that's already around me. And so Hillary starts breaking it down like, well, first of all, the dress is cute or whatever, but you could have some other dresses and styles. And she was like, right now that dress is so long that it's hiding your beautiful shoes, and you need to give a spin and a twirl and give us, Michelle Obama in 2018 and all this other kind of stuff. And so she likes the things that, Hillary is advising her on, and she was like, it would be great having somebody like you on my team. And Hillary tells her, well, girl, then I could be a part of your team, all right? And she was like, actually, we could get together and we could do a rebrand and, have some girl power going on and take over Cairo's house. And so Ivy says, well, the only reason why you even bringing this up and even want me to come in with you is because you want to be able to get out of that $50,000 contract that you owe Cairo. And basically, it would be like Ivy would be picking it up and taking it over. Again, I don't know if I trust Ivy, all right? Hillary, tread lightly with that baby, because you could be going from bad to worse with it. But, Ivy does say that she would go ahead and chop it up with her accountant and see, how this, would all work out. But she was like, baby, it could be something good, and we could end up taking over that house. And Hillary gets excited. So I guess we will see whether, this would end up being a good idea for her or not. We then have Lou come back to the house, right? They did call him back and let him know that Will wants to see him. Viv gives him a warning, basically, like, look, excuse me, I don't know if you changed or not, but I know that if you, hurt Will in any kind of way, it's going to be me and you. I will kick you out of this damn house, all right? You need to make him feel like he is the most important thing and the best thing that has ever happened to you. Of course, he laughed and he was like, oh, I see ain't nothing changed. And you still out here, representing Philly and all of that. And so when he sees Will come walking in, he talking about sup. I was like, really? And then Will tells, Aunt Viv and Phil that he want to talk to him by himself. And they like, well, we don't know about all of that. And they're like, please, I really need, to go ahead and do this. And so, of course, Will tells him it's been 13 years, since I heard from you, or whatever the case may be, since I heard or seen from you. And he was like, basically asking him, like, what's your excuse? What was the reason? And Lou was telling him, that he deserved better and that he wanted to be there, but he didn't want him to see him behind bars. At first Will is getting mad at that. He's not really buying it. He's like, come on, don't tell me that bull crap or whatever. And then he's telling Will, like, no, for real, growing up, I had to see my father through a glass. And then he actually starts crying. And may I say, they was acting they behind off in this scene, okay, baby. Give Marlon Wayans some more serious roles because he was coming through, all right? I cannot deny it. And he started to tell him, he had to see his father and the damage that it did to him and how he carried, that with him or whatever. And so he supposedly did not want to, repeat the same thing and have Will seeing him in that way or whatever the case may be. And, at one point it was like it was starting out rough. He's telling him how he wanted him to be better and have more and all this other kind of stuff like that. And, I said he didn't want him to see him in a damn cage. That would have been bad for both of them because he knows what that experience is by him, seeing his father in that way. So it's like he saw his father in that way, and then Will didn't see him in that way and didn't even know that he existed. He was imagining him dead sometimes. He was imagining him, with another family, and he was like, shit, you might have been better off that way. And so Lou was telling him, I know you're angry, you got every right to be, I get it. But like I said, he gives him the breakdown of what his experience was with him seeing his father that way. And so in his own way, according to him, he did not want him to have that same experience that he did. Of course, in Will's eyes, that's bullshit. That's not good enough for him. He just feels like that's another excuse. They both are getting teary-eyed and it's really emotional, and they angry and all these other different feelings at the same time. And he was like, seeing a man that he idolized for so long be broken did something to him and messed him up inside or whatever the case may be. That's what Lou was telling Will, how he felt, and that he felt like his father, when he would look at him, was just a shell of himself. And so they kind of looked like they was getting a little bit of a breakthrough. He was like, every time he would visit him, it would get worse for both of them, and when it was his turn to do his time, he just didn't want Will to have to experience that. And so he didn't want that for him. And so they go from, having that conversation and him telling him he deserved better and seeming like they kind of breaking through a little something, even though it was really tense, until them, sitting down and looking like they laughing and talking for a minute or whatever. You got Lisa at the daggone cafe waiting for Will. Of course, she got an attitude now even more because she feel like she been stood up. She looks at the text, her phone, and at the text message again where he was like, I'll be there. And then she just gets up and leaves. She don't call him or text him back, of course, because he's so caught up with his father. The time done slipped away from him, right? And so it's looking like Will and Lewis actually getting along for like maybe 2 minutes. They laughing. He was like, Will is telling him, oh, I know it sounds crazy, but I feel like I remember this time when something happened. He was like, did that really happen? And then, Lou was telling him, yeah, it did. And they laughing. And he was like, I scalped some floor seats or whatever. Like they had went to some game. He knew the security there and they got them in the locker room. And he was like, yo, so that did happen. And we snuck into that joint. And so Lou was like, yeah, and I was trying to get Iverson's, autograph and all this other stuff. And so, after he came back, the mom was mad and he was like, yeah, she was on your ass. So, they done got to the point where they were laughing. But then he's like, I could never win with that woman. So we'll ask him, like, what happened between y'all two? And all of a sudden he started trying to throw dirt on Will's mama. And it's like, no, Lou, you should know you ain't going to be able to do that. He told somehow Viv and Phil was getting rich, and he was like, well, really, Phil was getting rich. Then all of a sudden it was like I wasn't good enough. I wasn't bringing in enough money. And he was like, well, mom said you was always trying to find an angle and scheming and shit. And he was like, yeah, He was like, I figured she would put it all on me in that way, because she could never do no wrong. And he started getting in his feelings. And so Will basically was like, all right, well, you trying to say that my mother made you rob and beat a man half to death? And he was like, listen, nigga, she pushed me. He flipped on him so quick. He was like, she was on my back 24/7, 365, bro. I was like, Marlon was acting his behind off. And so Will tell him, you better watch your damn mouth when you talking about my mama. He was like, what's up? And they acting like they want to square up with each other. I said, yo. And he was like, you better chill. Then Lou telling him, back up, boy, take that bass out your voice. And he was like, hey, 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 they like ready to fight. And, Uncle Phil had to come get in between and be like, don't you touch him, Lou. And he was like, I didn't come here for disrespect. And Will told him, you didn't earn my respect. He was like, nigga, you wanted me, remember? And so, Will says, and if I hadn't, then what? I guess you wouldn't have never came. And he basically, went on him and was like, that's right. I didn't think so. And he tells, Lou, oh, Lord Jesus. He tells Lou, here he goes, still lying. And, Lou was like, you being unfair. He was like, don't you ever call me, your son again. He was like, you think you could walk up in here after all these years and lie and then disappear again? And basically, well, baby, he was like, I was trying to start over, whatever. And he was like, no, you tried to sit here and blame my mom. He was like, nah, I got a better idea. How about you take your ass and get the F up out of here? I don't ever want to see you again. And you can find a ditch and go lay in it. I said, damn. Will went in and he was like, because I don't need you. Okay, goodbye to Lou. All right. And so, Viv was trying to still keep it calm and say, just give him a chance, give him time. He's just a boy. And she was like, listen, if you really care about him, then you'll take the time to fix things and you don't know what could happen later. All right. Lou gonna talk about something. Oh, I came here to make things right with that boy. And, he made his choice and he gonna have to live with it, not me. He's gonna have to face the consequences of it. I said, boy, Lou, if you don't get your behind up out of here. And then, Viv and Phil is just looking at each other. And so at this point, Will is up in the room damn packing to leave. And Carlton is like, coming and checking up on him again. I'm loving Carlton this episode, And he's saying if you want to talk about anything, we could talk or whatever the case may be. He's like, Lou is gone now, and Will says, nah, he don't want to talk. He was like, good, I'm glad he's gone. And he basically just finishes, packing up his stuff. And he's like, nah, there ain't no need to talk. It ain't gonna do no good. And so Carlton starts chasing after him. Once he packed up a bag, he's like, Will. All the rest of them come running out when they hear, Carlton talking, and then he's telling him, listen, Will, don't leave. And they all saying, Will, please don't make a rash decision. And so they like, wait a minute, let's talk about this. You hurt and confused right now. I promise you that we your family. And Will was like, no, you're not my family. You're not my family. You abandoned me and my mom just like my pops. For 10 years, you didn't visit and you call that family. He pissed now. And he's like, you stood right there and lied to me and told me you would give me this opportunity for the future I want. And Phil was like, yeah. He was like, well, you lied to me and you clipped my wings from the start. And he was like, I just don't want to be around y'all no more. I can't trust none of y'all. And so Carlton grabs him and hugs him and puts some money in his pocket. I was like, oh, he was like, no, don't leave. And then, Will says to him, look, Carlton, man, Hillary, Ashley, I love y'all. Oh, that was just so sweet. I love the transformation of Carlton and the growth in Carlton character. It really is nice to see. And so anyway, Will go ahead about his business. Of course, Uncle Phil and them was still trying to call after him, and he walks out. And so, you have them trying to make calls, trying to see what's going on with him, of course, on live calls. And Phil says, well, maybe you better go ahead and answer that or whatever have you. Maybe he's contacted her and stuff like that. And so Carlton, asks how come Jeffrey isn't returning any of their calls. Phil is talking about he has no idea. Hopefully he will be back soon. And Ashley lets him know, like, Dad, we already know, you know what I mean, what's going on and why he's not answering. So you could go ahead and start playing that game with us. You got Vi and her feelings, and she's like, oh my God, what do you mean he's gone? Because she was saying how, she has spoke to him and that she haven't been able to get him back on the phone since then. And she was like, see, I made a big mistake and I should have said something and all of that good stuff. And so Carlton actually is out, goes to leave and they asking him where he's going. And like I said, he says he's going to look for Will, all right? And he ends up going and knocking at Lisa's door and telling her that she needs help to find him. And, he's like, he went missing a couple hours ago. And Lisa ticks me off again because her first response is, oh, well, he stood me up. He was supposed to meet me at the cafe. Girl, if he's saying he went missing and he's upset, what the hell are you talking about? But nonetheless, he starts telling her like, oh, well, his dad came, everything that he thought like the worst things was true. It really hurt him or whatever. And he ran off and none of us know where he's at. And he was like, he's helped me so much. He always stood by me. He never gave up on me. And I really need your help with finding him. And, he's really upset and she could see that. And so she actually ends up, go ahead and giving him a hug. And I guess they are going to go and look for Will. Now, Jazz seems to know where Will is at. This is the place that Jazz first took Will to. So I don't know if he just took a guess that he was there or if Will called him. But he does come up to him and was like, yo, your family, is worried about you. Even Carlton, you need to go ahead and go back home. And Will is like saying, no, that's done. You know what I mean? I'm not going back there. He was like, everybody lied to me. He was like, they just thought they was doing what was best for you. Of course, Will is like, no, that's what people always say. It's not about what's best for me. It's about what's best for them and all of that kind of stuff. And, he was like, nobody wants me. And so, Jazz is basically telling him like, nah, bro, you got to get it together. All right. I know you and your feelings and you hurt at this moment. He was saying, Will says, that's why he didn't even have a dad because they lied. And, like I said, he's trying to tell them they was looking out for you. And he was like, no, he was like, my mom says she was looking out for me. My dad said he was looking out for me by not calling me while he was in prison. Phil and Aunt Viv said they was looking out for me. Everybody that think they was looking out for me was something basically just end up hurting me, and of course he's all crying or whatever. And so, like I said, he says that he's alone, but Jazz lets him know you got a house full of people right now, or that nobody wants him. And Jazz was telling him you got a house full of people right now that do want you, okay? That's literally worried about you and missing you and want you to go back there. And of course, he's telling Jazz that that is done and he cannot go back, okay? And he was like, basically bringing up what his friend said to him that time with, him changing and him forgetting where he came from. And, Jazz was telling him, get in your car and go back. He was like, I promise you that it will work out. Okay. It may seem hard now. And, Will is still saying, no, it's over. And he was like, you told me that this city would try to make me forget who I am. And you were right. And so, Jazz tells him, listen, man, he was like, when it comes down to it, all right, keeping it 100 with you, remembering where you came from, all right, doesn't mean that you can't change your life for the better, Will, okay? Jazz was dropping some gems and speaking some truth, baby, all right? And he was like, the key to happiness is staying true to yourself no matter where you are, all right? That's what it's all about. And I ain't saying it's going to be easy because it's not, but it's possible, And so he was like, now, this whole moment right now probably seems like the worst thing ever, man. But it's all on you, and it's what you make. And so I loved it. I loved it. I loved it, y'all. That was the season finale. We going to see what decisions Wills is going to make, going forward in season 2. I'm looking forward to it. And that was what it was, y'all. So what did y'all think about that? What did y'all like? What did y'all did not like? Did you like the episode? Did you like what finally, we found out about Lou and everything that was going on? Are you trusting this chick, Ivy? Do you think that she's going to be the right move for Hillary? Put it all in the comments, how you like the season overall and all of that good stuff. Let's discuss. Till next time, toodaloo.